Hi,
Hi.
welcome to episode 69 of My First Job, the podcast. Today, we're going to explore careers in finance, and we have three finance professionals who will be talking to us about the work they do, how they got to where they are today, and what a career in finance involves. A short introduction. Vishnuvardhan is an accomplished professional with over 10 years of experience in financial operations, accounts, audit, taxation, and company law. But what really interests and excites him is teaching CA aspirants. Welcome to the show, Vishnu.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Okay, Lakshmi Shekhar is a qualified company secretary working at Karnataka Bank Limited, and she has a solid educational background in corporate law and finance. Welcome to the show, Lakshmi. Okay, and finally, Anjana Ramesh works for one of the big multinationals and has handled buy side and sell side due diligence, review of SPAs for listed companies, venture capital firms, corporate acquisitions, and startups. She has worked with companies located in multiple geographies. Anjana, welcome to the show.
Thank
Okay,
you, Venu. Happy to be here.
great. So I'm going to go one by one. A lot of what I've read, I don't understand myself. So I started running a company very late in life. So I have to use finance professionals to help translate a whole lot of things which I never had to do in my previous avatar as a creative person. So this is one of the things that you're forced to do, whereas all of you have opted for a career in finance. So Vishnu, why don't you tell us about how you came to start working in the finance industry?
So basically, sir, I did my schooling in Andhra Pradesh, and after the
Okay.
school, like 11th and 12th standard, in Andhra Pradesh, technically there was only like two options open for the school students after the 10th standard. Either you take science and become an engineer, or you take science and become a doctor.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there was no other option of commerce. So I was like literally forced to take science, and I did my 11th
Okay.
and 12th, and I understood that science is like I don't want to do engineering because everybody in the market are doing engineering, and all of my friends have chosen that, and I want to try something different. So I
Right.
was just searching for some opportunities or something like which excites me like that. So I just was having a conversation with my sister who was that time doing her BCom graduation second year. She just told
Okay.
me, Vishnu, there is a course called CA, and if you do that, your career will be like settled. But most of the people cannot do that. The
Okay.
word that most of them cannot do that has excited me more. The next moment I told her, then I will do it and show to you. And you
Okay.
won't believe without knowing what is CA, what a CA does. Next day, I just went to the local academy where they train CA aspirants, all that. I took admission and I just started my CA course without knowing what a CA actually does. Then it went on after my CA inter, and then it is like I was like doing my articleship. Then I understood, okay, so when you are a chartered accountant, you are supposed to do all these things, accounting, taxation, this thing.
Okay.
So that then I understood, okay, fine, this is what CA all about. So by
Okay,
God,
Vishnu, so I'll come to specifics of the job and I'll ask you some very, very basic questions, but let me
yes,
also get the others in and figure out what your motivations were.
yes.
Anjana, where did you begin? What happened?
Ever since school, I've always been a pretty studious kid. So I've enjoyed
Right.
the process of studying. And I mean, obviously, you will have other interests also, but that was interesting for me also. But like again, like Vishnu said, so we had two options after 10th, which is one is science and other was commerce. And I have always been interested in economics. So I chose to take commerce in 12th standard, and after that we had a lot of options available. So I could pursue any of the usual degrees like bcom or it could be economics, or I could opt for a ca qualification. So I chose to go the ca route because it's I felt like finance is a very everlasting profession. Like irrespective of what happens in the world, you need people
Yeah.
handling your money. Whether there is a bad economy or a good economy, the money needs to be handled. So
Right.
that is one aspect. And I felt that a CA's job is, there is nothing theoretical about it. Everything is practical, everything is hands on, and you're looking at things that are happening on a day to day basis. So all of that was very exciting to me, and I knew at that point that it was a challenging course. Both my parents are chartered accountants, but being the studious kid I was up for the challenge. So yeah.
Okay, great. So now we'll get Lakshmi in. So, what are your motivations of being a company secretary? What does a company secretary do?
Okay, so before I tell you what motivated me, I'll just explain what this course is. So this is a professional course, just like a chartered accountant, where CAs are handling finance side. Company secretary would basically handle the compliance and legal side of a company. So that, but if you take the course structure, the exam pattern, everything is similar to CA, but we'll be more inclined towards law side. So that is the basic difference between CA and CS. So right after I did my degree in BCom, but in the first year of college itself, I understood that just with BCom, the market is very saturated, and there has to be some differentiating factor so that I can have a safety net. So I started looking for what courses I can do parallelly with my BCom, and then after doing some research, I came across this course called Company Secretary, and I like theory subjects more. So that was one motivating factor which made me get into this course. And after going through the curriculum, I thought maybe I could give this a try. So that is how
Okay,
I ended up with this course. Yeah.
okay, great. So, one of the things that we'll do from now on, going forward in the show, is I want you to explain to me certain aspects of, because one of the things that fascinates me about finance professionals is that you draw conclusions from merely looking at figures. Okay. Yes, there is a certain, but a company balance sheet is essentially numbers on a spreadsheet. There could be text which explains what the company has done. But as far as you're concerned, you are expected to draw conclusions from a set of numbers. How does that work? Okay. Any of you, you go on, or Vishnu, would you like to start?
No, I think the other speaker is better person to talk on this.
Anjana? So
Yeah.
let me get Anjana onto it. Okay. So
Okay.
Anjana, tell us.
Okay, so accounting and numbers are also a language, according to me. So any transaction that you do, that anything that you do can be represented in the form of an accounting entry, and everything that has happened in the history of the company comes out in the financial statements in one way or the other. So as and when you keep looking at numbers, you will start understanding how those numbers work. You will start understanding that if there is one particular item in the profit and loss, then there is a corresponding activity that's happened in the company that's reflected here. And it's not always accurate, it is not always exact, but you can end up with at least a near and close conclusion on what has happened. And obviously that is substantiated better when you have explanations and texts and everything along with it, but the numbers do give a somewhat of an inkling of what could have happened. Yep.
Okay. But tell me this. Now, I'm someone who works with words all the time. So words
Mm.
speak to me. But when you look at numbers and you say that this comes under a particular head, or this is the way, on the face of it, it's simple. A company earns money by selling something, and it spends money on expenses, on
Mm.
salaries, on various things that the company has to buy or whatever it is. But how do you figure out if the company is healthy or not?
Okay, so like anything else, the okay, so this is driven by many factors. So it depends, one, on the nature of the company, the line of business that it is in, the sector it is in, the stage of the company. So is it a startup? Is it in its growth stage? Is it a matured company? So a lot of variables would determine on whether how you judge a company as healthy or not. For example, if it's a startup, then if the numbers are showing a loss, then that's perfectly fine, because they are expanding, they're creating their product, they're doing their marketing, their spends are going to be big at that time. And similarly, if it's a matured company, it's been there for 10, 12 years, and still for many years they've been making profits, and 1 year suddenly there's a loss, then your ears perk up. Like, that's out of the ordinary. So that's kind of how you determine whether a company is healthy or not. It depends on multiple of these factors, and you look at the numbers that should logically flow into as part of
So from
these
derivatives.
factors.
Okay, great. So, Vishnu, tell me, what is it that you find interesting about teaching people? You yourself, you like you said, you didn't know what CA was, and then you got into it. So, how do you explain things to aspirants? What are the things that motivate you to tell people about what a life in chartered
So actually,
accountancy is?
as Anjana was telling, so one thing what I believe is no matter where we are and what we are doing, it revolves around money. You take
Yeah,
either business entity, you take either a school, or even you take a religious place, maybe a temple or a church, or you go to even a hospital. It is all about money. So there should be some person who is going to take care of that money. And these professional courses are designed in such a way, especially the CA course structure is designed in such a way where you get comprehensive knowledge regarding everything. Like, it can be a profit oriented business or it can be a non-profit oriented organizations, whatever it is. So when you are running over such organizations, what are the accounting aspects as well as what are the legal aspects and what are the taxation aspects, all these things, the course is designed in such a proper way where the student gets comprehensive knowledge regarding everything around business. So the CA qualification is not only going to help the students just to practice as a normal like traditional chartered accountancy, all the stuff, or practicing chartered accountant, so they can explore various other areas and they'll be well groomed or equipped, I can say, to start even their own ventures. If you see, for example, the boat company has been started by a chartered accountant with just 16 lakh capital. So like this, there are so many options. And of course, if you see our central minister right now, Piyush Goyal ji, he's also a chartered accountant. Like that. So once you take up this profession, the knowledge what you're going to gain and the exposure what you're going to have in this particular curriculum is going to give you opportunities open, not only in the traditional way like practicing as a chartered accountant, etc., or working in any MNC companies, but also there will be so many venues open for us because of the exposure what we get in this course. So that is what
okay.
motivates me and what I train this
Keeps you
course.
interested. Okay, great. So, Lakshmi, you spoke briefly when you came in about compliance and how you have to manage that. Isn't that one of the things that is, compliance is almost like being a referee to ensure that all processes are being followed. Uh, you file papers as required. What does the majority or the most important part of your job involve?
So basically, currently I'm working in a bank. So with respect to bank, there are many regulatory authorities who's going to overlook you, especially RBI. So talking from a bank perspective, the role of the secretarial or company secretary is very important, because even a small decision we have to think 100 times, because we need to ensure that RBI is not going to come and inspect you. So so compliance is something which is very important from a listed company's perspective. But definitely, even if you take private companies and all, they are not giving much importance to the compliance part. But now the regulators are very strict onto it, and they are into levying hefty penalties for them. So because of that, the scope as well as the role of CS is also emerging right now. So that is how the compliance angle is looked into.
Okay. Great. So, careers in finance, typically, there are so many things that you can do today. And the three of you have taken aspects of finance, which is, uh, you know, takes you along different career paths. So, Anjana, when you get into due diligence, for example, what are the kind of things you're looking at, and how do you ensure that a company is worth investing in? And what are the signals that you see as to what are the red where are the points where the signals are flashing red?
Understood. Okay, so I'll probably would help to give a brief background on what due diligence entails.
Yes.
So I work in financial due diligence. So what we do is, there are two parties in every deal. There is a buyer and there is a seller. So we can either be engaged by a company that wants to sell or that wants to raise funds, which is basically the vendor in the process, or we can be engaged by a company that's interested in acquiring another company, which is a buyer in the process. So there is a buy side and a sell side due diligence that we can be engaged to perform. And the main things that we hope to cover is, first is to understand what the business is. So this goes beyond numbers. This goes into what is the business, who are their customers, what is their USP, what are their products, and what differentiates it from the competitors. So once we get a hold of all of that, then we understand on the functioning of the business. So how has the company done in the past, say 2 or 3 years? What is the expected growth plans of management for the next 1 year, 18 months? What are the numbers they have made historically? What are the numbers they expect to make in the next forecast period? So we look at those, and basically, if in either case, we hope to or we try to inform the investor on what they are getting into. So what are the actual numbers of the company, what are things that they should be paying attention to, what are things that they should look out for. And one more main aspect of the due diligence is helping out in the valuations. So the valuation of companies can be based on multiple things. It can be based on the EBITDA of the company. EBITDA is the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So it can help out in that, or it can be based on the net assets of the company. So in both of these cases, we would help in normalizing or streamlining these EBITDA or net asset numbers in order to reflect the true position. So we would remove any one-off items. We would remove any items where the trends are uneven between the years, and we would adjust for any under provisions or any over accruals that the company has done, and basically arrive at what is a normalized, streamlined number in order to help out in the valuations. And apart from this, you would also identify red flags in the company. So supposing the company has 5 major customers, and in the next year the contract with one of those customers is expiring, that is something that we would highlight to the investor, because that's something they should be aware of, whether that customer would continue or not, or the company would be losing that 20% of revenue, something that the investor should know. So basically, like, I've given a few rudimentary examples, but this is what
Right.
due diligence would entail.
Okay, great. Terrific. So now, Vishnu, let's go into something which I should have started in the beginning, but I realized that the conversation just went long. Uh,
Yes.
what is it that when you came in, which is 10 years ago versus today, what is the difference? How do you see the person who joined 10 years ago versus the person you are today? What is the difference that you see? Because a lot of people say, I have experience, but very few are able to articulate exactly what happened during those early days on the job. And I'll ask all of you that question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So more of like I'm into mostly into teaching profession. So when I started this profession, so it was like more of uh, blackboard teaching, and students were like, if you see this 10 years transition. So those days, like students were not having that greater chances of exploring the things. If you see 10 years back, when I go into the classroom, obviously it is like a typical blackboard teaching where you teach the things. Students will like say accept everything and say okay, okay, sir, fine. And then if at all, there will be like very much of hesitation among the students to ask the doubts, etc., etc. But now, if you see after 10 years, see, has been completely changing, especially post pandemic. The technology has entered into every aspect of our life and also into teaching. Now we have like I use the iPad for teaching and take the PowerPoint presentations, or we use various things to just make sure we are making the students involved. So the difference is like the focus what has been like in the students, because before 10 years the data usage, etc., all these things were very much limited. But now when the student is entering into the class, we feel like students know more than us, and of course student feels the same. So they'll be doing a lot of research, they will be googling here and there, and they will
What,
be
okay. What was your experience as a new as a person who was just starting work off, Vishnu, when you were joining, let's say when you worked as a chartered accountant, what were the early days on the job like? What is it that you were doing, and what are the first assignments you were sent for? What did you learn from them? What were some of the important aspects of learning that were important to you? If you can tell us about that.
So once I like qualified my CA, the first assignments were like mostly I started my own practice as a sole proprietor. So the initial assignments were like taking the ROC compliances obviously and filing various documents for the companies, which normally the statutory auditor might be somebody different, and but we'll be helping the companies with some ROC filings and some small company audits, all this stuff. So those initial days, the difficult task was getting the first client. The most difficult thing is getting the first client. And then I have realized that first, when you get the first client, how do you build the rapport with the client and how do you deliver your service? One thing I believe in, like in this journey of a chartered accountant, is when we are delivering the client whatever is needed at the right time and in a proper way. And mostly I believe that rather than just delivering the service, educating the client is more important. Not just like they are giving us the work and we are doing whatever we want, we are signing the papers and handovering the papers to them. Instead of that, before doing everything, first what I do is I have a client meeting, and what I do is I explain to the client clearly what I am going to do and what is more
Right.
beneficial for them, so that they
Okay.
understand the things better.
What is required? Okay, great. I'll come back to you, but I also want you to think of incidents where you either messed up or you learned. What did you learn from that whole thing? Because it's one thing to educate clients, but when you start off, you make a lot of mistakes. All of us do. So I want you to speak about some of the mistakes that you made and then how you realized that things got better as you went along. Okay, just think about this. So, Lakshmi, tell me how things were in the initial part of the job. What are the things that terrified you? What are the things that you learned slowly? What are the things that happened? Because none of us, even after years of experience, gets everything right. So I'm saying it's just as important to understand what is it that was difficult about the job and what has got easier over time.
Yeah, so I'm a recently qualified company secretary, so I cleared in
Right.
20. So this is basically my second job after post qualification, and it's
Okay.
been a months since I got into this sit. So banking industry as a whole itself was completely new to me. The banking terms, when you attend board meetings and all, the banking terms they use, everything was very different. Everything was new to me. So that itself was the biggest challenge on how
Right.
you mingle. And also, I shifted from Chennai to Karnataka, where and currently I'm residing in Mangalore, where people only talk in Kannada.
Right.
So it was like back
Yeah.
is new, then language Kannada was new. That was a major challenge initially, but now I'm starting to understand how this banking works as such, because even though you're in the compliance side, you have to understand the business as well to contribute more better. So currently I'm in a learning stage, I can say, where I'm understanding the different business perspective as well as banking industry as a whole, and also trying to learn Kannada so that I can be a part of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So
Those are
that
not things that at that point you think are important, but then you realize that language is just as important to communicate with people.
yes,
Okay. So great. So, Anjana, what were your early days on the job like? Where did you start and what was your first job?
Okay, so as part of CA, we're required to do the articleship, or which is like an
Yeah.
internship, but it's paid. So I chose to do my articles in a Big Four firm. So
Right.
the first thing, I mean, it was a huge culture shock, because I was right out of school, and then 1 year of classes later, I was inside a big corporate. So adapting to that change, I don't think people talk about it much, going directly from school to office. That took a bit of time, like in terms of understanding how things work. And you're in school, you're used to a routine, you're used to targets and schedules, but in office everything is, you need to plan, you need to learn to manage your life, your studies and your work. and that I would say was something I was really struggling with at the beginning. But 7 years down, I think I'm able to manage that to a good extent. And another thing that again people don't really talk about is your computer skills. So how well you learn Excel, Word, PowerPoint, how well you know to use your search engines, all of that would really help in your job, because a lot of those things they're not given much importance, at least back when I was in school. But once you start working, then that really becomes your main thing, like irrespective of how knowledgeable you are, how efficient you are in processing that knowledge is important. And apart from that, I think the main thing would be your communication skills. So how you speak with your managers and your juniors, how you interact with the clients, and how you convey what you want to convey in the most efficient way possible. I think those are the three things that were major learnings for me. And I think over the years I've not perfected it, obviously, but we're getting there.
Great. Okay. I think that will ask. So, Vishnu, what was it like? What were the difficult aspects of the early part of qualifying for a CA and then getting into the job? What is the most difficult part for you?
So the most difficult part for me was keeping up with the due rates and managing the staff. So these were the two toughest challenges which I felt like as a practicing chartered accountant in the early stage, because you are new into the industry first of all. So first we have to build a client base. So the client base being very small, and of course we cannot have the overstaffing in the office obviously. So we have to manage the things like I am the only person who has to deal with the clients, convince the clients, get the clients, do all the things, networking, everything. And still, we should be the person who is sitting all day and night doing the document, even basic documentation, we should be doing on ourselves. And so, because of this, what happens? And when we take the article students or any like budding C aspirants, all that stuff, so they'll be not that greatly equipped like us. And the biggest thing is we expect them also to be the same way how we are. A chartered accountant expect his article student or the staff to be a chartered accountant or to behave like a chartered accountant. That is
Yeah.
the biggest thing which we have. So this managing the due dates and managing the staff and getting the work done from them is the biggest challenge which I have seen, and I have come across over the period of time by setting up some streamlining the systems, having the proper formats and proper workflow, designing them, and then first elaborating the things what I am expecting from them, and then how they have to deliver it, all that stuff. So that was the biggest challenge for me as a early based like
Okay.
practicing chartered accountant in my early days.
Okay. Now, let's get into another aspect of careers, which is, let's say, Vishnu spent 10 years, Anjana has spent 7 years, and Lakshmi, I think you've spent fewer years right now. With the experience you already have, what is it that you see going forward in the next? I'm not asking you to plot out, but what are the things that you find interesting? And out of the kind of functions that you do, what have you found the most interesting? And what have you found the least interesting? Anjana?
Okay, sure. So, in due diligence, which is my line of work, we get to work on multiple companies. So, one project would roughly take about 1 to 2 months, sometimes three at the worst. And you keep rotating out of projects, so you get to see at least 5 6 companies in a year. So that for me is very interesting and engaging, because your job is never constant. You keep it's volatile, so you keep learning, you keep getting to try new things. Every company is different, every business is different. Even if you work in the same sector, no two companies are the same. So the
Yeah.
kind of work that you do is constantly changing. So there is absolutely, I mean, I've been doing this for more than 3 years now, and I've not been bored at all. So that is something that I find really interesting about my job. And I think this is a universal thing. If you're in consulting and you're in a big four company, then the hours are going to be hectic. So that is something that is universal. So if you opt for this route, then that is something you need to be okay with. That is,
Right.
yeah, that's,
That's how you see it. Okay.
yeah.
So, Lakshmi, what are the aspects of the job that you like, and what are the jobs aspects that you dislike? Because
Yeah.
it's
So
obviously hard to like everything about your job.
correct, correct. like I mentioned before, this is something new to me. So all the new assignments are very exciting. So this bank, like being in a bank, they take decisions like they go for fundraising. You never know. Like one day there won't be much of work, and next day they are like, okay, we are going for fundraising, and we have to be ready, and we have to be ready to work extra hours as well. So that, and learning through that process itself is a very exciting journey for me. So I would say there is more of things that excite me than the factors that bore me, because this is new to me. But obviously,
Okay.
if you ask after 2 years, my answer would be different. So
Right. Right.
yeah, if you ask what are the things that doesn't excite me, I would say sometimes things can get monotonous, but it is all about how you take it, and you should accept the fact that in every job there will be one saturation point. So if you can accept that, life would not be so boring, and you would always try to learn new things in the journey. So that
Okay.
is a, yeah.
That you look at. Okay. Great. So, Vishnu, which aspects going forward, what are the things that you find you'll be interested to pursue in greater depth and detail?
So coming to the likes and dislikes, actually, so my interest lies in GST actually in this field. So I love giving consultation in aspect respect to GST, as well as now I am in teaching GST also for the CA aspirants. So I love to integrate what I'm learning practically, what are the cases I'm seeing in practice, how do I approach the department, how do I convince the client or give the advices to the client. So all these things, bringing it to the classroom and guiding them in future, like how they have to approach the client and how they have to tackle all these issues. This is one thing which I felt very interesting. And coming to the second one, disliking part, seriously, in this profession, especially being a finance professional and then into practice, you will get a call from the client night 11:30 asking some small silly doubt. And the client expects that you don't have any personal life and you are like completely 24 by 7 and running an emergency care center. And one more thing, like we have this deadline sometimes, like last during COVID or something like the 2021 December 31st was a deadline for something like filing some returns, etc., etc. When the entire world is enjoying December 31st night in a different style, we are enjoying it in a different style. So these things are there in the profession, where when you get into practice, obviously you have to compromise certain personal times as well as family time, all that stuff. And you should be like, client expects you to be 24 by 7 available to them, no matter whether it is
Right.
Diwali, no matter it is New Year. So these things which I personally feel dislike about this profession.
Yeah. And what are the, like you said, GST is one of the things that really interests you and excites you.
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to understand from an accounting perspective, when something is interesting, is it that the cases are interesting, or is it interpreting something about the law that is interesting?
So I say both are interesting actually, because
Okay.
coming to GST being a new law, like hardly 2017 it has come into picture. Still, people try to what not understand it properly. Maybe I can say misinterpretation or misunderstand, or they interpret it in their own beneficial way. So the department will interpret it in a different way, and
Yeah.
the client will interpret it in a different way. So obviously
Right.
it leads to something like what
Issues.
dispute.
Yeah.
So obviously in GST, especially when you're into practice, every day you will find some different cases which are like not monotonous or which will not be boring, and it will excite you actually to deal with that.
Yeah. So, no, definitely. Those are the things which I think on the job are that much more interesting to you. So, let me ask you now about some of the what happens when companies don't follow governance practices, and you know that in the interests of profit, some deviations are being done. How do you ensure that you're able to? What is your way of dealing with the difficult aspects of your job?
Okay, so I think probably Lakshmi or Vishnu would be better to answer that, because I don't look at compliance as much.
Okay. You don't have to really worry about compliance to
Yes.
the thing or whatever. Okay.
Hmm.
So Lakshmi, why don't you say what happens when in a bank, of course, like you said, it has to be very clear. You have to follow rules. The RBI mandates certain things and you have to do that. So what is your experience of compliance been? That people consider it a pain to comply, or is it that
Yeah,
yes,
definitely. I would say that people are so much. See, one thing is many private companies, especially, they are ready to pay the penalty, but they want to get the things done. That is what I
yeah,
have seen. But if you go for a listed company, like there will be various regulators, be it SEBI, or they are continuously monitored. And those big companies, like listed companies and banking companies, they are more worried about the penalty they have to pay. So I feel that from the governance side, mainly public or listed companies are more governant as compared to private companies, because for private companies compliance is just a cost, and if you say hiring a company secretary itself is a cost center for them. So that has
yeah,
been my experience actually, because they don't understand the importance of complying to the law, and they don't understand the impact as well. But now the things are changing slowly, but still, that to reach that 100% compliant company, it is taking time.
yeah. No, and compliance is a major issue in terms of the government has got a lot stricter. You have to ensure that your governance is good. You have to ensure that all rules are followed. So that is a really good thing because it evens the playing field for everyone.
Yeah.
So, Anjana, what aspects of a finance job are the most interesting apart from due diligence? What are some of the other things that you do which you find interesting?
Okay, so I have a background in audit as well, and I have friends who are in banking and other some who are practicing, etc. So the main thing for most of the finance professionals, at least as far as I've seen, is how hands-on the job is. So everything, there is nothing that is intangible. There, everything is visible in front of you. Everything is it's mostly either black or white. There is there is no ambiguity on interpretations or things like that. And that is really interesting to do. There is no monotony as such, like Vishnu said on GST law. So there are multiple ways to look at it, so because of that it becomes very interesting. So that I would say is the main thing. And like I said in the beginning, like finance is everlasting. So irrespective of what happens in the economy in the outside, there is going to be something that a CA can do.
Right. Okay. So let's go into one aspect of finance, which is your, um, let's say, in terms of the difference between what you understand in a commerce course and what actually happens in the job. Is it a heaven and earth difference, or would you say that that is what you learn at BCom in BCom and what actually happens in the job are two completely different things? Vishnu, why don't you speak about that?
Yes, yes, yes. No, actually, I feel first of all there is not a hell lot of difference. Maybe the way the people practice, as Lakshmi was saying. So, few people like who are listed entities, all these people like they are very much keen to comply with the law, all this stuff. So when that is the case, it is like a cakewalk for the professionals. So that like whatever we have studied, whatever the rule book says, obviously we are following that. But majority of the being small clients or small people or small entities, so there the problem arises actually. What, as you are asking, like what we read and what we apply will be completely different. So sometimes if you see some small files or small individuals, etc., generally we calculate the income and we arrive at what is the tax liability, all that stuff. But people will come in reverse and ask you, sir, I want to pay so much of tax, so tell me how much income I have to show. So you have to do a
Yeah,
reverse calculation. It is like oh my god, what you are trying to do.
yeah.
So that way, so coming to the terms, like what I feel is in CA and these professional courses what we are studying is absolutely going to be very useful for us when we go into the reality in practice. Maybe the way we implement might be a little bit different, but whatever we are going to study are of course going to be very much useful, and that is what we are going to implement also. That is how it has to be
Okay.
done.
Okay. So let me come to something else. All of you are in what we would call, like Anjana said, there'll always be a need for finance professionals. So this comes into a conventional career. So, do you feel at some point that there's a difference between conventional and unconventional careers in terms of how people think? Or is it simply the way you're made? That is, okay, I'm interested in this, so I'm doing this. Whereas people who are doing unconventional things are motivated, have different motivations. What's your take on that, Anjana?
Sure. So, see, as far as a career goes, there is nothing that is conventional or unconventional.
Okay.
According to me, speaking like a student of economics, wherever there is a need or there is a problem and that problem is solved, that is a business. So,
Okay.
everything is about problem solving or fulfilling a particular need or a space that exists in the society. And as far as the so called conventional career goes, those are a lot more streamlined, in the sense they are more mainstream, and there are a lot of corporates, and that is sort of why it is called as a conventional career. But it's just a matter of time before any career becomes conventional from unconventional. Like a big example I can give is that of photography. Like it at one point in time it was an unconventional career, and now there are wedding planners and photographers are hired, and they have fixed rates and they have fixed deliverables, and it's on the verge of becoming a conventional career option, and people are more acceptant of it. So it's just a matter of time, I would say. At every point when a new need is being satisfied, when a new problem is being solved, then that is unconventional at that point.
Beautiful definition, Anjana. I think you've answered that question wonderfully well because uh, I used to have this misconception, and thank you for correcting it because that's a nice way of looking at it. That a career is unconventional only when it doesn't isn't mainstream. The moment it becomes mainstream, it is. You're right, absolutely. So, Lakshmi, what's your take?
Yeah, I
Do you
totally
think
agree.
that there is something else you would like to do going forward, or you see yourself in finance right through your career?
So currently, like I told before, I'm exploring this area as such. So I'm not sure. Like I want to continue in this field maybe for next 10 years, but I'm yet to figure out what I want to pursue after maybe next 10 years. I'm yet to decide. But I feel that once the job get monotonous, I'm not sure how it is going to interest me, because I like
Okay.
currently what are the things that are unconventional are mainly fascinating me, like traveling. So I have to figure out a way on how I can monetize that and maybe move to that area as well.
Okay. Great. Okay. So, Vishnu, what is your take on conventional versus unconventional? Like you said, when you started out, you didn't know what CA was. And now, for you, it would have been an unconventional choice at that point in time
True,
because
true.
it's something that is completely new and you took a risk. So,
Yes.
having come into it, have you found any aspect of your job that you think you will be GST? Yes. Within that, it is more of a detail. It's something that you like doing more. But do you think at some point you'd like to be doing something else as well?
Yes, actually, a lot of times I think about like I came into a place where okay, we are doing this consultation, etc. Fine, but still I feel like somewhere I want to use my knowledge where there is a creative industry or something like that. So to be frank, so maybe it can be anywhere, like in writing, or it can be in any other things like public speaking or something else. So I wanted to invest my knowledge and the skills on somewhere where the industry demands more creativity. So I felt like in this industry, okay,
Okay.
that is there, but not that up to the mark. So I feel like that is one thing which I wanted to explore. So that is there in mind. So right now I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, like training the CA aspirants and guiding them, and then of course consulting in GST, all these things. But I'm just exploring the areas where I can just use my creativity better. That is the thing.
So, give me an example of creativity. I'll try and give you one example that I came across when I was listening to a lawyer who was explaining how he said that the policy available for a company to use pipelines, the policy was only meant for oil. And he figured out what were the conditions that required to be put in place for that particular pipeline to be able to transport various kinds of liquids. Now, people outside may not understand the complexities of doing something like that. But when you say something creative, is that what you mean? Anjana, how would you define that?
Creativity in our existing job, I mean, for me, if I am preparing a different analysis, I am looking at something differently than my colleagues or the company, that itself is creative. And
Okay.
if I want to further escape into creativity, I have my personal hobbies, interests that I can pour that into.
Okay. Okay. Great. Lakshmi, what about you?
Yeah, so talking from a company secretary perspective, how you can be creative is like when you are giving suggestions to the board of directors in such a way that they are not tweaking the law, they are abiding by the law, but at the same time they are getting what they want.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
that,
No, that's true. That
yeah,
interpretation is all important. Very true.
yeah, how you
Yeah.
interpret it, say that it is balancing both the end, both the regulators as well as your management.
Okay. Okay. Great. Now, let's move into another thing in terms of um, what are some of the areas where you think finance is changing dramatically? Technology, yes. Compliance, governance, yes. But there's also this whole thing of the scams having got a lot more sophisticated. Everything from the way money is moved to all that is part of the problem. So, do you think that the consolidation of all of these online has actually led to finance getting more difficult to practice, or banking got more difficult as a result of the changes in technology? I know it's not directly related to your job on a day to day basis, but it's a question that I want you to explore simply because what are the changes that you see happening from where you started off? Vishnu?
Yes. So actually, as we have seen the changes in finance, as you rightly said, regarding the technology, the usage of technology with respect to the finance. So I just connected both with respect to finance as well as the legal compliances. So if you see like the past 10 years back or something like that, if you are filing an income tax return, obviously we used to go to the income tax office, we submit the return form and we get the seal on that, our copy, and we'll take back that and we'll go home.
Right.
Or if you are trying to incorporate a company, we used, even when I was doing my articleship, we used to prepare MOA of the company, the physical forms. We used to scan them and upload them and get it approved from the department. We used to go to the office, visit the ROC, etc., etc. Nowadays, like everything is automated. So now recently, if you see 23, 24 financial year income tax return itself, they have opened the returns so quickly. Normally, the income tax department used to do that somewhere in the month of like May end or June beginning. Now they have done it so quickly. We are in the April first or second week. The returns are getting uploaded and they're getting even processed, and few people got refund as well. So this is like
Yeah.
no way. That way, the work has become very faster with integration of technology, and the job for the finance professionals became literally easy. Why? Because normally, if you see a salaried employee or a person who is doing business who are not subjected to tax audits, for everybody the due date is July 31st. But because of the delay in income tax returns getting released by the department, etc., etc., so all the clients will come to you only in the month of July, which we are not able to cater them or serve them better. So we are in a pressure of finishing all the things within the deadline. But now that is not the case. Sir, there are clients who are earning salary income and their returns have been released so early, their files could have been completed quickly, then we can focus on the business clients. So that way the work has been simplified, number one, I can say. And as you are saying, like how the frauds, the scams would have been controlled, etc. So if you see, because of the scams or frauds happened in the corporate sector, the government has taken so many initiatives which they are integrating the technology into this. If you see now, when we are filing an application with the company incorporation, etc., etc., they are asking even the passport number of the person who is going to be acting as a director of the
Right.
company. Right.
Right.
So these type of initiatives are something very appreciated because you're able to know that person's passport number, and it is easy for the government later on if they identify something happening in the company, within the company, any fraudulent things. So obviously they can block them. So they can stop them from traveling from the country. And there was one more interesting thing which I have observed in my practice. So After this company frauds, etc., happening, the ROC, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, also came up with a scenario where they have started geotagging the location of the company. So we are
Right.
supposed to upload the details of longitude, latitude of the company, where it is located, and the director's photographs outside the office and inside the office.
Yes.
So that means they are
Yes.
making it so stringent. So they are trying to close all the loopholes where you cannot escape just by doing fraud. So that
Great.
way, I found it really interesting integrating the technology and using it to control the frauds in the country.
Great. Anjana, what are the changes that you have seen and what do you feel will change? Is there something
So
specific?
So a few major changes that I've observed so far is, at least in India, the number of companies that are shifting to an ERP based system, like a more advanced ERP based system, and how they are tracking their company finance, company accounts. So that is one major change. And the technology, or the availability of technology really helps in that, because at least a decade or a couple of decades ago, the whole concept of ERP and implementation, even if it was available, was not affordable to a lot of companies. So the accessibility of technology has really increased, and that sort of increases the accuracy of the accounts that are maintained. It reduces manual intervention and fraud. Like you said, a lot of it can happen because of manual intervention. So good systems in place, good processes in place, reduces the possibility of that as a whole. And apart from that, from my line of work, like we are into a lot of analysis and huge volumes of data processing. So a lot of integration of technology has helped us make those processes a lot more efficient. Like we have softwares that read agreements and summarize those agreements for us. We have softwares that you can put lots of line items of data, and you can easily process that into understandable tables and understandable graphs in a matter of a couple of hours, which earlier would not even be possible in one file. And all of those things of technology are really helping in making our work a lot more efficient and accurate.
Okay. Terrific. I think those are very specific and great examples, Anjana. Lakshmi, what are the changes you have seen from the time you came into what has happened today?
Yeah, to add to what Vishnu and Anjana said, I would say that because of the implementation of technology, many things have got streamlined. Especially if you see, mostly the works of the secretariat department used to be manual, but now, due to the introduction of various softwares, the work are becoming more autonomous as well.
Needed.
And
Okay.
fraud perspective, the regulators are very strict, especially when it comes to the companies. There are regulations like prohibition of insider trading to prevent the insiders from trading after
Right.
getting the. So even the regulators are very vigilant, as well as the company, especially the secretarial department. We are responsible to ensure that any fraud does not take place inside the organization. So all are vigilant right now because of the penalties and after repercussions. So that is it.
Okay. Great. Thank you all for the time you've spent. Now, to just close out, I'd like you to elaborate one by one in brief on what are the career options available to people once they do whatever qualification you have done, and what are the prospects that you see for them, and what are the qualities that they need to be aware of when getting into finance. Anjana or Vishnu? Yeah, Vishnu, why don't you go for it?
Yes, sir, yes. So, coming to the career opportunities, obviously, as you asked. So, first of all, CA is one such qualification in finance industry, like which is the topmost qualification you can say in India, and of course, it is a globally recognized qualification where our ICA is having so many MOUs with various other countries, so that the job opportunities are open across the globe, not just in India. So normally people feel like when they do CA, etc., they have to just open an office or practice as a chartered accountant, or they have to go for an employment. But it is not that way as of now. So there are so many global doors are also opening for us, because it is going to be a fintech revolution which we are expecting in other coming years. Because as Anjana and we were talking about, it is all about money what we are going to deal. And now we are going to see like so many collaborations, so many amalgamations of companies, etc. So the finance professionals are going to have n number of opportunities, not only just in India but also across the globe. And not only just the conventional way of what we are talking, just as a practicing as a chartered accountant, etc. And if you see now, there are so many chartered accountants like me who are doing even practice and who are into teaching as well, which is like made a very good career for so many of them, and they are making a good money also. So it can be that way. And there are so many startups which are headed by the chartered accountants, so that way. So it is like the opportunities are limitless. The only thing which I just wanted to add is nothing but, as you asked, what are the qualities they should be asking first, having first of all. See, first of all, when we are entering into this professional qualifications, when we are choosing these professional qualifications, first thing, one should be having the patience to learn the things and adopt the situations. Nowadays what I am observing is mainly the aspirants are having so much of like aspirations, but that aspirations are not meeting the standard what they should be having first of all. So they are
Okay.
lacking the patience, and they are lacking that eagerness to learn the things all that. So they just want everything to be delivered just like the 10 minutes, but it is not going to happen that way. So there are so many
Okay.
complications you have to deal in this corporate world. For that you have to gain extraordinary knowledge. For that you have to invest your time. So my only suggestion is, first be patient enough to invest your time and be hungry to learn the things. So obviously the opportunities will be open for you.
Great. Thank you. We'll have to go a little quickly because we're ending that. So, Anjana, what is the suggestions that you would have?
So, in terms of career options, I think I agree with Vishnu. So, it's we should come out of the perception that a CA has to only do an audit or a tax sort of a practice, but there are so many avenues that are open that anything that people can get into consulting, people can get into. There are a few CAs that I know with 5-6 years experience who are actually CFOs in startups. So, the opportunities are limitless. And in terms of the qualities, I think a couple of major things. So one is I'm just saying, in order to complete the course,
Yeah.
people would need a lot of determination and discipline, because it is an arduous process and there is a lot of hard work that you'll have to put into. So that discipline and that determination would really help. And one more thing is, people should be open to face failures, because the pass percentages are very low irrespective of how good a student you've been in school. These are the numbers and we'll have to be ready to face them, and it could be for no fault of yours that you've not cleared, but that is something that people should be open to dealing with. That is
Okay.
most people are not prepared for it and don't
Right.
deal with it very well, including myself. Actually, I haven't faced a failure, but the fear of failure was very dominant over all other emotions. So that is something people
Okay.
have to be prepared for.
Great. Okay. So, Lakshmi, quickly, what is it that you would uh, want people who are getting in to be aware of?
Yeah, one thing I would like to add to what Vishnu and Anjana said is, you have to have that perseverance, and also never compare yourself with other, like your college mate, because they might get a job easily. But once you clear a professional qualification, the level of respect and the amount of income you are going to get would be highly different from what if you are a normal graduate. So that is one big motivating factor, because ultimately money is going to be the motivating factor, right? So I can
Great.
say that, yeah, once you clear, that is what is going to be there.
Okay. Great. Thank you all very much for agreeing to come on the show. I think there are a lot of things that you said, great takeaways. And I hope people who are listening in are going to get those insights and advice that you have proffered. Thank you for being on the show. And here's wishing you the very best in your career.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.